All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. Today we're going to be reviewing The Star Scroll by Melanie Rawn. Man, it's late at night. I just spent all night outside reading on my front porch this book. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I've read this several times, but this is a reread, probably my third or fourth reread. I've got the whole set here of Melanie Rawn's Dragon Prince series, and then her Stronghold series, her Dragon Star series up here. I love these books, so I'm rereading them and reviewing them for my channel. Up all night, outside on my front porch in the cold rainstorm. My porch is covered, so I'm not getting rained on, but it's cold. That's why I'm still dressed in my Chambord sweater. By the way, if you ever get to France and get a chance to go to Chambord, oh my God, what a palace that is. We're way off topic. We're starting out way off topic, folks. This is book number 2 in the Dragon Prince series. It came out in 1989. We always review the covers because I love graphic design and I love cover illustration. Again, this is by Daw Books. We've got a great Michael Whalen painting, probably my favorite illustrator. Got, great 80s graphic design on this, and it wraps around and we get stuff on the back. This thing is dope. Michael Whalen paintings are lit on fire, every single one of them. And he did all of the paintings for the whole series. And each one of them is just better than the next. Not only that, but in the book, we also get, I've met Melanie Rawn several times at different conventions, and I have had her sign all of my books. So there's that. I name drop every time I can. There's also a great glossary of the characters in the back. There's great maps in the front. So this is an A-plus production by Daw Books as far as the book packaging itself goes. And like I said, I spent all night in a rainstorm outside reading this, rereading this, because I was so engrossed in what was going on. If you want to know how the series starts, watch my review of The Dragon Prince that's on my channel somewhere. It's easy. Just type in The Dragon Prince, my name, Brian Lee Durfee, and the video will magically appear. I swear to God that it will. Now, what's this book about? I consider the Melanie Rawn books, when I'm in Melanie Rawn's world, in this world that she's built, it's kind of like I picture myself in the desert Southwest, where we have red rock deserts in the valleys, but then the mountains are very alpine, Rocky Mountain So if any of you have ever been into Utah or Arizona, Colorado, you know what I'm talking about. And since Melanie Rawn is from Arizona, I'm assuming that she was picturing the Arizona landscape, like Sedona, Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona area, where you go from total desert, and 15 minutes you can be in the top of the Alpine Mountains with aspens and pine trees, because that's the landscape that she really describes here. And so when I'm in this world she's created, I just picture the environment around my house, because I live in Utah. And I think that's cool. And it really, I think that's what she's going for, and I think that's what she's done. And I think I'm correct on this. These books were written about 10 years before Game of Thrones came out. These were actually kind of the Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was Game of Thrones. These were sort of the first fantasy books that really kind of took big, huge cast of characters and major conflicts with major cities and major castles and major clans and big armies of knights and stuff, and sort of like, it wasn't like quest based. It wasn't like Lord of the Rings or Sword of Shannara or even Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams or David Eddings. It was more of like family drama mixed in with political drama and dragons. Massive amounts of dragons. We can't forget about that. And that's why it's great to have the family tree and the glossary back here, so you can keep, just like in Game of Thrones, where you always kept referring back to that character chart, you do that a lot in here too, because there's a lot of really cool characters. Starting with Rohan, our main guy from book 1, he's the king now, and his wife Sioned, or Sioned, or Siobhan, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's Sioned. I don't know how that's pronounced. But they were the two main characters in this book, and they're still the main two characters in this book. But now their kids have sort of grown into teenage, late teen years. And so now we're kind of focused on their kids, and that's Markin, who's in his early 20s, Andre and Soren, who are 19 or 20, they're twins. And then Paul, the youngest one, Pol, he's 14, and he seems to be the most important one that we're dealing with in this book. And he is sort of the bastard child. He is not like Rohan and Sioned. I won't give away any plot spoilers from book 1, but of their 4 kids, one of them is an illegitimate bastard that the father, like kind of like a little oopsie. But I won't get into it any more than that. But he doesn't know that he doesn't know that his mom isn't his real mom, if that makes sense. His dad is his real dad. He doesn't know that his mom isn't his real mom. His real mom was a piece of crap from this book. But anyway, that's part of the drama we're dealing with. Then we've got the Star Scroll itself, which is sort of a devious bit of writing, ancient writing and trickery, that if you read it wrong, you can poison yourself and cause great damage. But if you know how to read it and figure out its puzzles, then it can be very beneficial, and it can heal people, raise people from the dead. It can do a lot of magical things. And then the Sunrunners, who are these magical people with magic powers. There's a lot of political intrigue between them, and then the dragons. Then it's the dragons that are the coolest, because this is probably, of all the books, this one probably deals with dragons the most, where the dragons, they lay these eggs, and then the eggs crack and the baby dragons come out, but then their shell is left behind. And the shell has magical properties that if it's burnt with fire, specifically dragon fire, it can turn to gold. And so that's how Rohan's kingdom gets so rich, is because they go mining in these dragon caves for these bits of gold dragon eggshells, if it were. And that's where the dragons, and then Sioned and a couple of their kids, they're like getting closer to the dragons, and they start to like interact with the dragons. They want to learn how to talk to the dragons, because Sioned kind of is like she's like, I don't know if it's a good idea if we start talking to the dragons, because then inevitably we will be using the dragons in our battles, because they could just fucking wipe everybody. And she's like, I don't know if I want a war machine. I don't know if it's a good idea to become too familiar with the dragons, because I know we will be tempted to use them as our friends in our wars, and they'll probably want to help fight with us. And they start to get close to the dragons, but she's really conflicted, like, we're just going to turn them into another piece of battle equipment, and I don't want that. And so there's a lot of different moving parts here. And one thing I like about Melanie Rawn, and this will be the last thing I mention, because I don't want to get into a whole lot of plot here, but there's a lot of other than an explosive climax, which I loved, there's some stuff in this book that I was noticing that you just can't put in modern books. There's a scene, there's a rape accusation, right? And then there's a rape accusation, and just listen to this passage right here. Rape was a heinous crime. If found guilty, the accused man was deprived of the physical equipment that would enable him to repeat the offense. If the woman made a false accusation, however, her dowry was forfeit to the man, and her lord had to pay a hefty fine. So, now this is part of the thing that I like about these old books, especially with the way Melanie Rawn dealt with this situation, like a rape accusation is. Nowadays, you couldn't even deal with that in a book, because so many people would just get so outraged that it's even in there. But she is just this part of the plot. This is part of the rules of the world she set. Is like, if a man is found guilty of rape, he gets his cut off. And if the girl is found guilty of a false accusation, well, then her dowry is forfeit, and her lord has to pay a hefty fine. So and it's just a rule in her world that she's created. And she works, and there's a lot of different political rules like this that she's created, and they're just there. She doesn't make a stand either way, pro or con. It's just part of the world and the rules of the world she set up, and she works and she lets her characters live amongst those rules. And I'm telling you, folks, in modern fantasy, you just can't do that anymore. You can't. You just got to sidestep all of that, which I think is a shame, because it really lends itself to a very, very hefty bit of drama that's in this book that would not be in modern books. And I just love the fact that we can go back and read things that haven't been, destroyed by our political correctness. And so that's just one thing that I loved about this book. And there's several other scenes and stuff like that. I give this book, all these Melanie Rawn books, they get 10s out of 10s for me, because they're just, I love everything about them. I think they're great, great fantasy adventures, and I think everybody will love them. Everybody.